Now I'm back and I'm here to share a whole other chapter in my life. My name is Kelsey Turkey and I started this channel 9 years ago. I was so tired of being silent all the time. I always had this smile on my face, and people would always tell me, they'd be like, "You're so you always have this beautiful smile on your face." And what would go through my head was like, if only you knew, right? Um, if only you knew. And so I started this channel because of a mentor of mine at the time. She 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 was sharing her story, and I it was something I always wanted to do, but I was always so afraid to do so. I was always just suppressing the feelings and the topic and things that had happened. And so I finally, came across this woman, and she was really inspiring. And this page, this channel gave me the freedom, the ability, the outlet that I needed to do just that, to use my voice, to stop being silent. And so I created this channel and I started to share the fact that I had gone through some childhood trauma. And I didn't even go into detail. It wasn't like I hopped on here and was like, A, B, C, D, E, F, G happened to me. And this is everything that happened and how it happened. It wasn't that. It was just me sharing that I had been through some stuff. And so once I started doing that, immediately the floodgates opened, and people started telling me that I needed to take my videos down, that I need to consider other people in my life that I could be affecting. I had people telling me to think about how this was going to affect our family, and um, people were going to think that it was certain family members that did it. And in my head, I was just thinking, well, I know the truth, so why does it matter? But at the same time, I didn't stand firm in that. And I allowed all of those voices to silence me. And I was silenced over and over and over again. And I was super inconsistent with um, sharing my story and sharing what had happened, because uh, each time that I did, I had people telling me things. And you know what? I could sit here and I could blame others. I could say that so and so told me this and so told me that, and that's why I don't do it anymore. Um, but the truth is, sorry, I have a hair in my face. The truth is that there was a lot of mental work that I personally needed to do. And so it because of all of that necessary mental work, that's where I wasn't confident enough. I didn't stand in boldness, because I was really, really insecure. And so now I'm back and I'm here to share a whole other chapter in my life. You see, if you've ever been through childhood trauma or any kind of trauma, really, um, it is super important to take note that trauma that you went through, that's not your story. It's just a part of your story. It's just a little chapter of your story and who you are and what you've become. Um, as we go through life, we're going to endure things, and we're going to have to push through those things, and then we're going to grow through those things. And then something else is going to happen that we're going to endure, and we're going to have to push through that, and we're going to have to grow through that. And so 4 years ago, I found myself in another situation, and my husband was in active addiction, and it was, I had two little ones. I had a toddler and a newborn, and they were 18 months apart. And it was just chaos. Like, there was a lot of quitting and starting again and quitting and starting again on my husband's behalf. Um, there was just things that were happening. We were really aggressive, both sides. I was aggressive, he was aggressive. There was throwing things, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of um, just violence. And people hear violence and they think physical violence, they think slapping, bruises, which some of that did occur. And you know but it wasn't like, there were so many other things that were happening that were just toxic and not right. And we both had to get to a point where we were like, all right, like, we got to take steps. We got to be intentional. We got to fix these things. We can't, like, it can't continue, right? And so I kind of want to share a little bit about that. And that's what this episode is going to be about. I just the roller coaster that it was, and how we kind of got through it, I guess. So basically, mm, my husband he had experienced a lot of loss. There was a lot of huge changes going on in his life, and I ended up pregnant. And so then um, eventually I move in with him, and we have our baby. And at that time that I was pregnant with our firstborn, he was like dabbling and stuff, but it was just always like, oh, I'm better, I'm fine. And so then it continued, and we had our second born, and like, our babies were back to back. I think I already mentioned they were 18 months apart. And so my husband like snowballed into um, the drugs and the addiction, and it had gotten to a point where I was just, trying to control things, which is never good. That's when you're trying to control things and things aren't going the way you want them to, and you kind of come out of yourself, and you start to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And the truth is, like, we can't control things, especially things that are out of our hands. Um, but so I was trying to control things, and one time my husband he like didn't come home, and I had heard about this safety preparedness event, and I wanted to go because I wanted my son to see all of the like emergency vehicles, like the police cars, the fire trucks, the SWAT truck, tanks and stuff like that. So I was like, we're going. And my husband hadn't been home, so I'm like driving up and down the highway that um touches each of the towns in like my community, right? Um, and I'm like driving up and down trying to find my husband, and I finally come back into the town that we live in, and I find him at the park. And I he was out of it. He was just completely, and he was embarrassed. Like, you could see it on his face. He was just like, what, you know? And um, I was like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know who you think you are, but we have something to do today, and I need you to go home. I need you to shower. You're going to get ready. And at this time, you're meeting me because we're going to this event. So we go to this event, and he is just paranoid, right? There's all these police officers there, sheriff, like just hanging out. They're just chilling, they're doing service, community service for the event, right? And I see this booth, and in this booth, there's this huge sign that says Damsel in Defense. Now, because of what I went through in my childhood, at this stage in my life, I still had a mentality of like, I want to learn self-defense so that I know how to kick ass and nobody could ever do to me what happened to me as a child, right? And now I had even more motivation for this because of everything that I had experienced with my husband at this point. And so I see this banner and it says Damsel in Defense, and I'm like, what is, like, I need to know. And so I step into the booth. My husband walks away with our son. And the lady that was running the booth, she's now my director. She starts telling me about like all of these personal protection tools that she had on her in her booth. And she's talking to me about a stun device, and I'm like, yeah, okay, lady, like I don't really care about the stun device. I thought this was something and it's not. And she's talking to me, and I keep looking over to my right, and so the tables were set up in like this U formation, and to the right was an entire children's line of children books. And literally the week before, I had been rolling around in my bed thinking about how smart and like intellectual my son is and how much he absorbs and takes in. And I was like, abuse can happen as early as the newborn stage. My son was about to be 1 year old. And I was just thinking about like, how am I gonna communicate with my son without instilling fear in his heart, right? I don't want him to be afraid of people. And so I, I'm at this booth, and she finishes talking to me about stun devices, and I'm like, what are those? And I point to the books, and she's like, oh, that's our children's line. And so she walks me over and she explains the children's line to me, and she starts telling me that she does presentations for families and children, and she gets people informed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do that. And I had even more motivation now, because of the stage that I was in and everything that my family was going through and what we were putting our children through, really. And so I was like, okay, well, I at the time I was the only one that was being really responsible with our money. Um, but I bought a book, and I already knew, like, mentally, I was like, I'm in, but I had to wait. And so when I finally joined, it was in October. I had just gotten paid because I was working for the school district, and they would pay us at the end of the month. And um, I, so I like started, I signed up, and it happened to be during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I started getting informed, and I started learning about like what domestic violence is and how it's not just physical violence, and that there are multiple forms of violence. And usually when it comes to domestic violence cases, um, there there are more than one form of violence involved in the case. And so I started learning about these things, and I started learning about like the driving factor of abuse and violence, which is control, um, and power. And I started to see like where my flaws were, and just joining this mission, like it taught me a lot and it pushed me to take the steps to get the help that I needed. And so I joined 12-step programs. One of them was Life Recovery, which was through the church. And at Life Recovery, they recommended Al-Anon for me. And so I started going to Al-Anon. And Al-Anon, like, so many people go there with a huge misunderstanding of like, how am I going to fix my partner or my loved one or my child, whoever it is that's in your life that's an alcoholic, right? And the truth is, Al-Anon teaches you about yourself and the things, the habits, the characteristics that you carry that allow you to end up in the types of situations that I was in, right? And so it led me to like take the steps to mental clarity and get better, because you guys, I was hysterical. There was like, it was a roller coaster. My husband was like, I think I already said this, but he would like try to quit cold turkey, and then he couldn't start again, and then he'd try to quit cold turkey, and like the withdrawals, everything, it was not good. So eventually we get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. Um, I get all my stuff and I move in with my mom, and um, my husband finally he decided to go into rehab. I had already been at my mom's for a hot minute, um, and he on his own was like, all right, he was at a low. He hit his rock bottom, and he went to rehab, and he like completely transformed in there. Completely. Like I can't even tell you how many times I sit here now and I'm like, no, that's not how we do things, because I'm still like, sometimes I'm still used to some of the ways we used to handle things. And so um I'll catch myself and I'll be like, County, this is a much healthier way to handle this. Like, why are we trying to bring up old stuff, right? So the reason I shared all of that with you is because October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that is part of my story. And I just want to share that there is light, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Like, no matter the chaos that you're going through, there's like your story. I have this shirt that I made. It says my story, and in the back it says to be continued, because your story will continue. There's more to you than what is going on right now. Right now, I actually have a project going on where if you have a story of domestic violence that you've overcame, I'm creating a platform where you can share it anonymously. And the hope is that other people can hear your story and find encouragement to push through what they're going through, to see that, hey, I'm not crazy, this is actually happening, and it's okay if I say something, it's okay if I speak up, it's okay if I get help. My hope is that by sharing your story, by sharing my story, that other people can find encouragement to speak up, because I know that once I started to speak up, once I found community, once I started to share what was going on, it was like there was this huge weight lifted off of my shoulders, and I finally felt like I could breathe, and I had hope. So I'm gonna put the link down below. There's gonna be a form that you can fill out. You share your story. You could opt in or out of me posting it to my social media. So it would go on YouTube and my Instagram. And then there is an option for you to come up with an alias. I will be reading it in the first person, so I will be coming in here and talking like if it was me that experienced it. And so it's like completely anonymous. I hope that if you were in here and you listened to this, that you found some kind of encouragement through it, that you stick around, and that we can grow together. And remember, your story will continue. I love you. I hope you have a good evening or day whenever you're watching this. And just talk to you later.